Most photographers dread sales. We tell ourselves we're not salespeople, we just want to create. But here's the truth: if you can't talk about your offers in a way that connects, you'll stay stuck in that feast or famine cycle forever. Today, I'm sharing the exact shift that took me from cringing every time I mentioned my prices to confidently talking about my offers online and booking clients without the icky sales pressure. And I promise, it doesn't involve being pushy, manipulative, or pretending to be someone you're not. When I first started trying to sell my photography services, my biggest fear wasn't that people would say no, it was that they would think I was too salesy. I hated the idea of sounding like those pushy ads you scroll past online, so I avoided talking about my offers at all. I would post my photos, share a few behind the scenes moments, maybe write something vague like now booking fall sessions, and then wonder why my inbox stayed empty. Sound familiar? If you've ever struggled to talk about your offers online, you're not alone. Most photographers fall into one of two traps. They either undershare because they don't want to bug people, or they overshare because they're nervous and end up dumping every single detail in a giant caption. Both approaches push clients away instead of drawing them in. Here's the thing: talking about your offers online doesn't have to feel gross. It's not about manipulation. It's not about selling yourself. It's about clear, confident communication that connects with your client's needs. When you frame it that way, it becomes service, not sales. So, how do you actually do that? Let's break it down. When I first started trying to sell my photography services, my biggest fear wasn't that people would say no. My biggest fear was that they would think I was being too salesy. I hated the idea of sounding like those pushy ads you scroll past online, the kind that feel like they're yelling at you to buy something. Because of that fear, I avoided talking about my offers at all. I would post my photos, share a little behind the scenes moment, maybe write something vague like now booking fall sessions, and then wonder why my inbox stayed empty. If you've ever struggled to talk about your offers online, you're not alone. Most photographers fall into one of two traps. They either undershare because they don't want to bug people, or they overshare because they're nervous and end up dumping every single detail in a giant caption. Both approaches push clients away instead of drawing them in. The truth is, talking about your offers online doesn't have to feel gross. It's not about manipulation. It's not about selling yourself. It's about clear, confident communication that connects with your client's needs. When you frame it that way, it becomes service, not sales. The first shift I had to make was to stop thinking of my offers as products and start thinking of them as solutions. Clients don't book a 60-minute session with 20 digitals because they love the sound of 60 minutes or 20 digitals. They book because they want updated family photos, they want to remember their newborn's tiny details, they want holiday cards, or they want to feel beautiful in front of the camera. The details matter, but they're not the reason people book. If all you ever do online is list the details, you'll blend in with every other photographer. If you talk about the solution, you'll stand out. Instead of posting, fall sessions are $400 and include 60 minutes and 20 images, you could say, fall is the season for cozy sweaters, colorful leaves, and family memories. My fall sessions are designed to capture all of that in a relaxed 1 hour shoot where you walk away with a gallery full of images perfect for holiday cards and wall art. Do you feel the difference? The first one is just information. The second one creates a connection. You're painting a picture of the outcome, not just listing the features. The second shift is to make your offers feel like an invitation, not a demand. Clients don't want to feel pressured, but they do want to feel welcomed. That's why language matters so much. Saying something like, "I've opened up a limited number of fall sessions and I'd love to have you join me," feels warm and inviting. You're letting them know there's space for them and you're excited about it. Compare that to, "You need to book now or you'll regret it," which feels like pressure. Your tone should always match the way you'd talk to a friend: warm, encouraging, and excited. Another important piece is clarity. Clarity always beats cleverness. It's tempting to write super creative captions, but at the end of the day, your clients need to understand what you're offering and how to get it. Don't bury the important details. You can absolutely weave in storytelling. In fact, you should, but make sure the call to action is crystal clear. If people can't figure out how to book, they won't. One of the biggest mistakes I see photographers make online is apologizing for selling. You've probably seen it before. Captions that say, "Sorry for the sales post, but Or, I hate to bug you, but I have some openings. That language undercuts you before you even begin. Imagine if your favorite coffee shop posted, "Sorry to bug you, but we're open this weekend." You'd think, why are they apologizing for existing? Selling isn't something to apologize for. You're offering something valuable. Clients can take it or leave it, but your job is to communicate it clearly. Then comes the question of how often you should talk about your offers. Most photographers mention them once or twice and then get discouraged when no one books. But here's the truth. People need to see something multiple times before they take action. That's not pushy, that's psychology. Studies show it takes anywhere from 7 to 20 touches before a client decides to buy. If you only post once, you're missing out. The trick is to vary your angles so it doesn't feel repetitive. One day, you can post about the experience, talking about how fall sessions are relaxed, fun, and perfect for families with little kids. Another day, you can post about the outcome, explaining how clients walk away with images perfect for their holiday cards. On another day, you share a client testimonial that says what it felt like to work with you. Same offer, different entry points. That keeps it fresh for your audience and reinforces the value. Sometimes you'll run into objections online too. Someone might comment, "That's too expensive," or "Why don't you include all the digitals?" The key here is to answer calmly and confidently, and then move on. You don't need to argue, you don't need to spiral. For example, you could say, "I totally understand. Photography is an investment. Sessions include my time, editing, and a curated gallery, and most families find it's exactly what they need. I also have product options if you'd like to see how others preserve their images." That tone is calm, confident, and unapologetic. Here's another mindset piece. Your job is to share, not to control. You can't control who books. You can't control every reaction. Your responsibility is to show up consistently, share your offers clearly, and invite people in. After that, it's up to them. When you release the pressure to make people book, selling online becomes so much lighter. I'll never forget one of my clients a few years ago. She followed me for over a year before she booked. She saw my posts, read my stories, and stayed completely quiet the entire time. I had no idea she was even paying attention. Then one day, she messaged me saying, "I've been waiting for your holiday minis to open. I'm finally ready." If I had stopped posting out of fear that I was bugging people, she would have missed that opportunity. That experience taught me something huge. People are watching, even when they're not engaging. Consistency matters.
So here's what I want you to remember. When you talk about your offers online, focus on solutions instead of features. Frame it as an invitation instead of a demand. Be clear and confident instead of clever or apologetic. And show up more often than you think you should because your future clients are quietly watching. Even if they don't like, comment, or share, they're paying attention. And one day, when they're ready, they'll book. Now, knowing how to talk about your offers online is one thing, but what about when people ask for discounts? That's where things get tricky. Nothing kills your confidence faster than discounting out of panic. In the next section, I'm going to walk you through how to know when it's okay to offer a discount and when you need to hold firm and walk away. These boundaries will protect your value, keep your confidence intact, and make sure you're building a business that lasts. Discounting is one of those topics that makes every photographer squirm. On the surface, it seems harmless. A client hesitates, you shave off a little from your price, and boom, they book. But what really happens is that every time you discount out of fear, you chip away at your own confidence, and you train your clients to see your prices as negotiable. And if your prices are always negotiable, then they don't actually mean anything.
I remember the first time someone asked me for a discount. It was a family who genuinely wanted photos, but said their budget was tight. I felt torn. My heart said yes because I wanted to help them, and my fear said yes because I didn't want to lose the booking. So I discounted. They booked. At first, I thought I had won, but when I sat down to edit their session, I felt resentful. Every image I worked on reminded me that I wasn't being paid fairly. I rushed the editing. I didn't give them the best of me. And by the end, I realized that no one had really won. They didn't get the full joy of my energy, and I didn't get the security of knowing my work had value. The truth is, discounts given from a place of panic will always backfire. They may fill your calendar in the short term, but they drain your energy and your confidence in the long run. That doesn't mean discounts are always wrong. It means you need a clear filter for deciding when they make sense and when they don't. So, how do you know the difference? For me, it comes down to intention. If I'm discounting because I'm afraid of losing the booking, that's fear talking. If I'm discounting because it aligns with my values or my strategy, then it can make sense. For example, I occasionally run mini session promotions because they're designed to be a limited themed event. The scarcity is built in, and the slightly lower price is part of the design. That's intentional. I've also chosen to gift or reduce sessions for causes I care deeply about, like bereavement families or rescue dogs. That's values based, and it comes from a place of generosity, not fear. Both of those examples feel aligned. But if a random client messages me saying, "We love your work, but can you do it for half the price?" and I say yes just to secure the booking, that's not alignment. That's me operating from a scarcity mindset. And here's what happens when you give in to that fear. You stop showing up as your best self. You spend the whole session wishing you had held firm. And the next time someone asks, it's even harder to say no because you've trained yourself to cave. Discounts also ripple outward into your client base. If one person books you for half price and tells their friends, guess what happens? You get a reputation as the negotiable photographer. Suddenly, instead of building a brand around trust and value, you're building a brand around deals. And people who are only chasing deals are rarely your most loyal or respectful clients. They'll leave the moment someone else undercuts you. One of the most powerful lessons I learned was that saying no to the wrong client is what makes room for the right client. I used to believe that turning someone away meant failure. Now I know it means integrity. Every time I've walked away from a discount request, the relief I felt was immediate. Sure, there was a moment of fear. What if no one else books? But without fail, another client came along who happily paid my full rate, and I was able to show up fully for them without resentment or exhaustion. This is why boundaries are so critical. Boundaries aren't about being cold or inflexible. They're about protecting the energy you need to serve your clients well. If you're constantly bending, constantly shaving off prices, constantly trying to please everyone, you'll burn out. But when you hold firm, you give your clients something even more valuable than a discount: your full presence, your best work, and the confidence that you're running a sustainable business.
Now, let me be real for a moment. Saying no is not easy. The first time you do it, your stomach will churn. Your voice might shake. You'll hang up the phone and wonder if you made a huge mistake. That's normal. But over time, it gets easier. You start to trust that no is not the end of the world. You start to see that people who truly value you don't disappear when you hold firm. They stay, they book, and they respect you more.
I'll share a story that changed the way I look at discounts forever. A few years ago, I had a potential client who wanted a maternity session. She loved my work but said her budget was tight and asked if I could lower my price. My instinct was to cave. But I paused and told her gently, "I totally understand where you're coming from. My session fee is what it is because it allows me to give every family the experience and quality they deserve. If now isn't the right time, I'd love to stay in touch for the future." She thanked me, didn't book, and I moved on. 6 months later, she came back for a newborn session at full price. She told me, "I realized I wanted the experience you offer, and it was worth waiting and saving for. If I had discounted out of fear, I would have undercut myself, and she would never have learned that she could save and prioritize the experience." That moment showed me that no can actually deepen trust, not destroy it. The other side of this is generosity. I never want to be the kind of business owner who is so rigid that I can't give when my heart says to give. There have been families who have gone through unthinkable losses, and I've photographed them for free. There have been shelters that needed photos of rescue animals, and I've volunteered my time. Those are not discounts, they're gifts. And the difference is everything. A discount comes from fear, a gift comes from love. One drains you, the other fills you. That's the filter I use: fear or love. If it's fear, I walk away. If it's love, I lean in. Here's the big mindset shift I want you to take from this section. Your value does not shrink just because someone can't pay your price. Read that again. Your value is not determined by their budget. When someone says, "That's too expensive," what they're really saying is, "That's not where I choose to spend my money right now." And that's fine. They have the right to make that decision. But it doesn't mean your work suddenly lost value. It doesn't mean you need to panic and slash your prices. It just means they're not your client right now. When you see it that way, walking away stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like alignment. You're not rejecting them, you're honoring yourself and your business. You're saying, "This is the standard I've set, and I'm going to hold it because it allows me to serve in the best way possible." And in doing so, you create a business that supports you instead of drains you. So the next time you're tempted to discount out of fear, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this from panic or from purpose? If it's panic, take a breath and hold firm. If it's purpose, if it aligns with your values or a strategic decision you've made, then give from that place of strength. Either way, you're choosing intentionally instead of reacting out of fear. That's the kind of choice that builds a sustainable business. That's the kind of choice that builds confidence instead of eroding it. And that's the kind of choice that makes selling feel like service instead of sleaze. In the next section, I'm going to share the sales mindset shift that completely changed my business, the one that took me from dreading every sales conversation to actually enjoying them. It's not about tricks or tactics, it's about seeing selling in a whole new light, one that feels authentic and aligned with who you are as a photographer and as a human. When I think back on the early years of my business, the word that comes to mind around sales is dread. I dreaded the emails asking about prices. I dreaded the phone calls where money might come up. I dreaded in-person sessions where clients would glance at my pricing sheet and hesitate. Every single one of those moments felt like walking into a test I hadn't studied for. My stomach would twist, my words would get jumbled, and I would walk away feeling smaller than before. What changed everything for me was realizing that sales isn't about convincing. It isn't about begging or bending or proving. It's about clarity and service. Once that clicked, my entire business shifted. I stopped dreading sales conversations because I finally understood that my role wasn't to push someone into booking me. My role was to clearly communicate what I offer and let clients decide if it's right for them. That shift may sound simple, but it transformed how I felt in every interaction. Here's what I mean by seeing sales as service. When someone comes to me asking about a session, they're not just shopping for a product. They're looking for help solving a problem. They want updated photos for holiday cards. They want to preserve their baby's first days. They want to celebrate a milestone. They don't always know the language for what they want, but they know how they want to feel. My job in that moment isn't to dazzle them with a pitch. It's to listen, to guide, and to show them how my work meets that need. Once I started thinking of sales this way, my tone changed. Instead of panicking and rushing to justify my prices, I leaned into curiosity. I asked more questions. What kind of images are most important to you? How do you imagine displaying these photos in your home? Those conversations didn't feel like selling, they felt like serving. And when I finally shared the price, it was connected to the story the client had already told me. It wasn't just, this session costs $400. It was, based on what you've shared, my full session is $400, and that includes the time and editing to create a gallery like the one you described, with options for albums or wall art so you can display them just the way you imagined. See the difference? One is transactional, the other is relational. Clients don't walk away feeling pressured. They walk away feeling heard. That's the mindset shift that changed my business. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean everyone books. It doesn't mean I never hear no. What it means is that when someone does say no, I don't take it personally. I don't spiral into self-doubt. I understand that no is simply part of the process. When I hear no now, I remind myself that it just means they're not the right fit at this moment. That doesn't make me less talented or less valuable. It simply makes them not my client. I remember one sales meeting years ago where a family came in to look at newborn photos. They loved the gallery but balked at the price of the album. The old me would have started panicking, offering discounts, trying desperately to save the sale. Instead, I calmly said, I completely understand if the album isn't the right fit right now. You still have your included images, and you can always come back for products in the future. They left with just the basics, and I felt fine. A year later, they came back for a family session and this time bought the album at full price. That experience taught me that standing calmly in your value builds trust. When you don't push, clients remember how you made them feel, and when they're ready, they come back. Another story that shaped my perspective was working with a client who was deeply nervous about booking because she'd had a bad experience with another photographer. She told me she felt pressured, rushed, and like she was being sold something she didn't even want. That conversation made me realize how damaging it can be when sales is approached from a place of pressure. I promised myself I would never make a client feel that way. From then on, I focused on creating a sales process that was gentle, clear, and rooted in service. And the irony is, the more I let go of trying to force the outcome, the more clients booked with ease. This mindset shift also freed me from the guilt around charging sustainable prices. Before, I thought asking for what I needed was selfish. Now I understand that charging appropriately is part of serving well. If I undercharge and burn out, I can't serve anyone. But if I charge fairly, I show up with energy, creativity, and focus. That benefits every client. So if you're listening to this and sales still makes you feel slimy, here's what I want you to take away. Selling is not about pushing. Selling is about guiding. Selling is not about taking. Selling is about serving. You're not tricking clients into parting with their money. You're helping them invest in something that matters to them. When you see it that way, the pressure lifts. You stop seeing yourself as a salesperson and start seeing yourself as a partner in your client's story. Here's the practical way this plays out in your daily business. The next time you talk about your offers online, instead of thinking, I have to convince someone to book, think, I'm inviting someone into an experience that will serve them. The next time a client asks about your pricing, instead of thinking, I have to justify this, think, I'm simply sharing the information with kindness and clarity. The next time you feel that rush of panic that says, if I don't discount, I'll lose them, think, if I hold firm, I leave room for the clients who are meant for me. Over time, those small reframes add up. You stop panicking, you stop dreading sales, you start showing up with confidence. And the beautiful thing is, clients feel that. They respond to it. They lean into your steadiness. They start saying yes, not because you twisted their arm, but because they feel safe in your clarity. This is what changed my business. This is what allowed me to move out of survival mode and into a business that actually supports me. And I believe it can do the same for you. As we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you that you don't have to figure this out on your own. If you want a safe space to practice these conversations, share your wins and struggles, and learn alongside other photographers who are shifting their sales mindset too, I'd love to invite you into the Savvy Shutterbug community. It's where we go deeper into everything I've talked about today. You'll find photographers who get it, who know what it's like to struggle with selling, and who are committed to reframing sales as service just like you. You don't have to dread sales forever. You can actually learn to enjoy it, and I'd love to help you get there.